Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Devin Shanahan Show. As most of you are probably aware, a lot of you maybe watched it, maybe not. But Biden had his first in-person presser today. It's the first one since he's been in office. It's one, I believe he was close to setting a record, at least for modern presidents. This is the longest any president has gone without holding a face-to-face personal presidential presser. And, there's lots of speculation that he's not doing it because he is obviously suffering from some old age and mental decline, things that you would expect from someone of his age. Like, I'm not making fun of him or putting the man down. He's clearly suffering from something, some sort of mental decline. It's quite obvious. And that is the reason I believe that he does not do pressers very often, right? They want to keep him as I guess on prompter, you could say, for lack of a better word or phrase there, is they want to keep him as scripted as possible. And in order to do that, to keep him from going off script, sometimes you just got to keep him locked up, so to say. It's like you got a grandmother or a grandpa who has really bad dementia and they just say random things that are sometimes crazy out loud. That's like Joe Biden right now, right? So obviously you can't have those people speaking to the entire country if they're the president because, it could go from good to bad to horrible very quickly. He could spurt out something racist like he used to do all the time back in the Senate. So, yeah, but whatever. Let's talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about his press conference, and we're going to talk a little bit about some voting laws, like laws that have kind of been sweeping through red states across the country. Multiple states have done it. Today we're going to talk about Georgia. Brian Kemp passed one. Or he signed it right there. Obviously their legislature passed it. He signed it into law, though, today, I believe, and it was either today or yesterday, and it's a pretty good one. I did a lot of research on it, so we're going to look into that a little bit. I got a good article about that from CNN, believe it or not. They obviously call it voter suppression laws, but if you read down to the bottom of the article, they admit what it actually is, and it's just voter ID stuff. But yeah, so we'll talk about those two things, and then yeah, that'll be it for the day. It'll be a quick one, and hopefully I'll catch you guys this weekend. But yeah. So let's go on. Got an article here from the Daily Wire. Fact-checking Biden's disastrous first press conference. On Thursday, after going his first 2 months in office without holding a press conference, the longest streak in modern U.S. history, Joe Biden finally answered questions from reporters in the White House. Biden first delivered a short speech celebrating his administration's achievements regarding COVID-19 before calling on pre-selected members of the press to field various questions. Both his speech and answers to questions from journalists were replete with falsehoods. Let's fact-check the president's first press conference since his inauguration on January 20th. So, before I even get into this, and I'm sorry, guys, because I'm going off the off-topic here a little bit, but I just can't stand this, and I have to talk about it. They say here, right, delivered his first short speech, and he had questions, like, from pre-selected members of the press were there. Pre-selected, meaning these people had questions that Joe Biden knew what the questions were. He had answers on his notepad. I watched this whole thing, or almost the whole thing. I was at work when it was going on, so I didn't watch all of it, but I watched part of it in between, working and stuff and passing through the hallways and stuff. And he had notes for every single answer he had. He didn't call on any conservative news outlet, which I don't really care who he calls on, but you have to be so blatant. And then the media, the left-leaning media, all the mainstream media who props up the Democratic Party, right? These people are essentially, the mainstream media is an arm of the Democratic Party at this point. They're just like the wing of the promotional wing of the Democratic Party, right? They ask him all these easy questions, and they say that they're giving him fair questions. They say that it's all fair and there's no bias here, blah, blah, blah. And then Joe Biden gets up there, calls on only people he likes. He has all his answers written down on notes. He knows the questions he's going to get. He knows who's going to ask them. And it's just absolutely absurd. It's like, how do people believe this? How do people see this man doing these types of things and actually believe that this man and that the media is not biased at all? Like, and that this is not all just bogus. It's all some staged crap, man. It's staged crap. And God, if you believe this, you got to read some books or something. I don't know, like read some freaking books, get smart, because you can't, it's absurd. It's so obvious. But yeah, what I was getting into with that is, can you imagine if a Republican got up there and didn't do a press conference for like 3 months, right? Or 2.5 months, however long it's been. If you don't do a press conference for a whole 2+ months, and set a record for longest time going without a press conference in modern American history. So if one, you do that, the media would hammer a Republican over that. Not only would they hammer the Republican over that, they would also hammer him over the fact that he just gets up there with notes and pre-screened questions, essentially, and only calls on, like, it'd be like Donald Trump getting up there and calling on Peter Doocy from Fox News 15 times in a row, knowing what questions he's going to say, what the questions he's going to ask, and having the answers written on a piece of paper. So he's like, hey, Peter Doocy, okay, Peter Doocy, good a question. So, Donald Trump, what do you think about the crisis at the border? And then Donald Trump would, like, pull up his notes and be like, let me see here, it's a crisis about the border. Oh, here it is. I believe that the crisis at the border is not a crisis. All right, Peter Doocy from Fox News, another question. That's like what is going on up here, and it's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But let's get on. I don't want to get too much off topic. Let's start debunking some of these here from this article. Biden celebrates meeting his goal of 100 million vaccine doses administered on day 58. This is absurd. This is not okay, I guess Joe Biden can call it his goal, but it's a pretty weak goal. It's weak friggin' tea, because if you go and you look at the charts of vaccines, right, you look at like the rate of the vaccinated people, of people getting vaccinated per day in the U.S., it was like 1 million per day or something. And it was 1 million per day, like way before Joe Biden even took office. Like, we were on track to meet Joe Biden's goal before Joe Biden even took office. Under Trump's plan, under Trump's vaccine distribution plan, we were already on track to reach 100 million vaccine doses administered by day 58. We were already on track to meet that goal. Biden comes in, doesn't even make a plan, talks crap about how there's no plan in place, even though there's clearly a plan in place because the stuff is getting administered in record time. We're beating all the other countries around the world for vaccines. And it's like, come on, he comes in, no plan, no nothing, craps on Donald Trump's plan, says there's not a plan, which there was a plan. Even Dr. Fauci said, no, there was a plan. It was just different from what the Democrats would have liked. And then he tries to take credit for it. It's like, come on. This is similar to his goal where he said he wanted like 50% of schools to be open in some capacity by July or something like that. That goal was actually a setback from where we currently were. We were already at like well over 50% of schools were open, at least in some capacity, like already. And he was like, oh, well, we want to make it 50% by some capacity. And I think he defined some capacity as like 1 day a week by like July. So he wants to go backwards. He wants to go back from like 50+% schools to just 50. Come on, this guy's crazy. He just walks in there, he lies, he says whatever the people on the left are going to believe, and people just lap it up, dude. He gets up there on stage, he pulls down his pants, he pisses all over the audience, and they lap it up. That's what's going on. That is exactly what's going on. Ugh. Freaking crazy. Here's the other one, right? Biden, he also set the goal of 200 million shots in 100 days, which is, again, this is already, like, here, I'll just read this. I'll read what the author of this article wrote. Biden sets goal of 200 million shots in 100 days. Again, the mathematical reality of vaccine progress makes this almost certain and far from the ambitious goal Biden claimed. With 21.7 million doses administered by the time he'd enter office, and further 178 million doses would be needed to administered by the end of Biden's first 100 days in office. That's 1.78 million doses per day. Given that the rolling 7-day average number of doses has been over 2 million per day since the beginning of March, over 133 million doses already administered, and 36 days remaining until the quote 100 days mark, the average daily distribution of doses would have to fall to well below the current average to miss this objective. Essentially what he's saying is, my goal is like to get an F in this class, and then he gets an F in this class. Like, my goal is to do nothing, and I'm not going to do anything, right? Or it's like saying something like, my goal is to get an A in this class, but you already got an A and the class is like over or something, right? It's like, it's setting a goal that has already been met, essentially, and is completely embarrassing. But like I said, he gets up there, takes off his pants, pisses all over these left-leaning media folks, and they just lap it up like it's gold. Absolutely absurd. All right, let's go on. He also claimed that American vaccine program is unprecedented, that no other country has come close to doing what we are doing. This is only true if you cherry-pick specific statistics and ignore other central factors such as population size. In terms of total number of doses administered, the United States does indeed lead the world with over 130 million doses administered compared to over 82 million in China, 53 million in India, and over 31 million in the United Kingdom. However, the United States has a large population, and if we analyze these figures based on population size, the United States is actually far behind multiple other developed countries. Looking at doses administered per 100 people, the United States is behind Israel. Israel is 111 doses per 100 people. Now, remember, a lot of this takes 2 doses to be completely vaccinated. So that's about 60%, right? 50 to 60% for 111 doses per 100 people. Seychelles, I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry. The UAE is 79 per 100. United Kingdom 47, Monaco 47, Bahrain is 44, and the Maldives is 41. So, yeah, we're not the highest in percentage, and of course, Joe Biden is taking credit for something that is absolutely not true. Let's go on. Biden also claimed that he set a goal to open, okay, I just talked about that, about the opening schools. He also claimed that migration increases during winter months were worse under Trump. Biden compared the rate of increase in persons attempting to cross the border in 2021 and 2019 in an apparent attempt to deflect criticism for the ongoing border crisis, saying that there's been a 28% increase between January and February of 2021 compared to a 31% increase during the same period in 2019. While this is true, it ignores the fact that the starting point is far higher under Biden. In 2019, 58,000 people attempted to cross the border in January, and 76,000 attempted to cross the border in February, a 31% increase. However, in January 21, 78,000 people attempted, with that number increasing by only 28% to 100,000 in February. So essentially, he goes up there and says, the rate of increase in immigration from January to February under my administration was less than under Trump's. But then when you look at the number, the actual number of people who immigrated under Biden is twice as much as under Trump. This is absurd. And like I said, the media laps this stuff up, dude. It's complete. I mean, you can't call it a lie because it's not a lie. I mean, technically, the percentage of increases it is lower under him than Trump, but it's double the actual number. That's what matters. The percent increase only matters if you're comparing like a similar quantities, and you're not comparing similar quantities here. We're talking about 2 times the immigration under Biden, and it's because Biden touted the entire time that he was going to let everyone in. You know what I want to know? I want to know what the Biden immigration policy is. What I ask people on the left when they talk about immigration is I ask them this. I say, this is my most important question. How many people do you think should be let into the country every year? How many people do you think we can take? We can't take everyone in the entire world. So pick a number. What's that number based on? No one ever has an answer to that question, right? And then the second question is, what do you think we should allow people in for? Like, how should we select amongst the number of people that apply? Because we can't take all of them, so how should we select? My argument is obviously we should select based on merit, because at the end of the day, this is our country, and our leaders and our immigration policy should be here to benefit Americans. It should not be here to benefit other countries at the expense of Americans. I'm fine with, helping refugees and things like that. We have options for that, but when we have a process for that. But a refugee is not someone who is fleeing a poor country. That's not a refugee. A refugee is someone who's being like religiously persecuted. Their country is completely war torn and they can't live there at all without fear of death. It's not like you live in a crappy part of town and there's gang violence, or you have a very high poverty level in your country and you can't find a job because the unemployment's high. That's not refugee. You can't just come here and claim refugee status because your country is economically or has a high crime rate. You can't do that. It has to be like a legitimate defined refugee, like you had a natural disaster or a war or religious persecution or some sort of genocide or something like that, right? Yeah, gosh. And I mean, the Joe Biden policy is literally, let's just let everyone in. When they get here, we'll lock them up in cages. The whole kids in cages thing, they gave Trump a lot of crap for that. It's happening right now, and it's happening way worse than it is under Trump. I mean, they sent FEMA down there. They sent the Federal Emergency Disaster Group down there to help with this. And they're like, oh, no, it's not a crisis. What do you mean it's not a crisis? You sent FEMA. It's obviously an emergency. It's obviously a crisis. I mean, it's in the name, FEMA. Like, come on, people. It's absolutely absurd. Let's look at some of the other claims Biden made, though. Biden claims that the Trump administration shut down the number of available beds at the border center. That's not true. I don't need to read this. It's just not true. Biden claims that Trump did not fund the Department of Health and Human Services to get Trump children out of border facilities. This is also a false claim. The Hill reporting in September 2018, quote, the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, is reallocating more than $260 million funds this year to house the increased number of detained migrant children, the HHS saying. The need for shelters continuation was not due to the family separations, but because of more children crossing the border alone. The reason a lot of children are crossing the border alone is because there is essentially like I forget exactly what it's called, but if your children cross and become citizens, then it's like an excuse for the parents to cross, I think, especially under the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats, you can be whoever you want. You can be Satan and run right up the border, or Osama bin Laden reincarnated or something. You can run right up on the border and say, hey, I'm Osama, let me in. And they'd be like, yeah, sure. World Trade Centers are that way. Yeah, go over there. It's absolutely crazy. They let everyone in. They have no rules. They're not even testing people for COVID. They're over here making a big friggin' stink about everyone wearing their masks. And if you don't wear your mask, you're killing grandma and all this crap. And then they're not even testing people for COVID at the border, where they're letting in record numbers. Record numbers. These people are living like 2 inches from each other, too, in these little so-called cages or detention centers or whatever they are while they're waiting to be processed. They're living like 2 inches from each other in squalor, in these little like survival blankets, the ones that are like a reflective like mylar or something. Yeah, they're living under those because they have no resources down there, because so many people are storming the border, because Joe Biden ran on an immigration policy of let them all in based on nothing. That is the policy. And until I have heard any other policy, that is what I'm confident it is, because that is what is going on the border. Correct me if I'm wrong, some Democrat out there. Put something in the comments. All right, got an article here from Breitbart. Carville, who used to be a Clinton advisor, a big Clinton advisor, he was up there with George Stephanopoulos. Carville on the Biden presser, White House press corps is ridiculous. He asked Fox News so-called border crisis questions. Okay, so weird title, right? But we'll get to the article. It's good. It's from Breitbart here. Former Clinton's aide James Carville said Thursday on MSNBC The Beat that the White House press corps questions at President Joe Biden's press conference were, quote, ridiculous. Carville also objected to the line of questions on the migrant surge at the U.S.-Mexico border. Okay, just to put this into a little bit of perspective, for those of you who don't know James Carville, I'm not going to go into his history with the Clintons or George Stephanopoulos, but he is extremely anti-Trump. He is extremely liberal, right? He's not like super woke liberal, but he is very liberal, right? Very, very liberal. Yeah, so this is not someone who's just going to call out Joe Biden every day. This is not normal for him. This is like, something's bad when James Carville is calling out the Democratic president. Carville also objected to the line of questions on the migrant surge at the U.S.-Mexico border. On Biden being asked if he will run in 2024, Carville said, well, first of all, he's going to say he's going to run. He won't be in 2 months into a 4-term president and say, I'm not going to run. Then some fool asked if Harris would be his running mate. Please, the White House press corps, I give him a D+, and that's only because I'm a notoriously easy grader. Some of this stuff was utterly ridiculous. I'm serious, Ari. No one is going to say I'm not running for re-election. So you're a lame duck 2 months into your term. Yeah, exactly. Like, if someone asks you if you're running for president again, you are obviously going to say yes. If you say no, you are instantly admitting that you're a lame duck. No one's ever going to take you seriously, and no one's going to pass your policies. You have to say yes. It's a bogus question. You literally have to say yes. And no one believes him anyway. The man might not even be alive or mentally here at all in 40 years, nonetheless next week, so who knows? And then obviously Carville goes on, he has to get his little hit in on the conservatives, right? So he says, quote, all questions being driven by Fox News and Newsmax on the so-called border crisis, which is a border problem, not a crisis, and not one question about COVID. Yeah, because COVID is over, people. I mean, it's not officially over, and I'm not a medical doctor. YouTube, please don't take down my video like you did my last one, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a medical doctor. COVID is not over. It kills people. Yes, it's very bad. Very, 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 very dangerous. Everyone should wear their mask. Vitamin D is not the cure, blah, 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 whatever it may be, right? All the stuff I said on the last one that got me banned. It's out there on the podcast, so it's a good one. Go listen to it. But it's called The Truth About COVID. But, yeah, I mean, this guy's out here complaining about COVID, and then also he's just trying to get his little hit in at Fox News, right? You got to do it, right? You got to do it. When Brian Stelter's not doing it, I guess someone else has to do it, right? But yeah, let's. I got this little video here. It's a little video from the Bloomberg. It's just little highlights of some of the main questions on the main topics that he was asked. Just gonna listen to it. Get a little bit of his responses here. It's only 3 minutes long. We're gonna listen to the whole thing. I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'm sure probably get off topic a little bit. Talk a little bit about some other stuff maybe. But who knows? Yeah, let's listen to this and then talk about it, and then we'll talk about the election laws and then wrap it up.
Have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh God, I miss him.
Have you?
No, an answer is
Yeah, it's like everyone makes jokes about their predecessor, but like you're gonna be a predecessor too one day. So I don't know why everyone just makes whatever, right? I guess it doesn't.
yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
Will Vice President Harris be on your ticket?
I would fully expect that to be the case. She's doing a great job. She's a great partner. She's a great partner.
And do you believe you'll be running against former President
He
Trump?
doesn't look there. Like,
Oh, come on.
the thing,
I don't
like
even
his
think about.
eyes,
I don't
man.
I have no.
Look at his eyes. They're so black. They're so black. You see that? It reminds me of like a Purge mask. Have you guys seen that movie where it's like one night where you can just go out into the city and there's no rules and you can do whatever you want, and there's like crazy stuff in the movie. It's kind of like a horror movie, sort of. It's not like really a horror movie. It's kind of like a thriller, horror, drama type of weird thing, but everyone essentially goes out dressed up in these fucked up masks and, excuse my language, but they dress up in like these scary masks and they go commit crimes. Like if they hate their neighbor, they'll like go kill their neighbor or something like that, right? Or they'll go rob a bank or something. Like there's no laws one night of the year, and the whole movie is about like, we need this one night to burn off steam, blah blah blah. It's obviously a completely fictional movie, right? But that's what his face like reminds me of. It reminds me of like one of those creepy masks that you get at like the Halloween store that's it's only open in October. And it's like, takes up like part of like the local Target or something, and they open like Halloween supply store, and you go and you buy your like fake little I'm an old man mask, and the eyes are cut out so they look like really black and hollow when you look at it. That's what Joe Biden looks like. And his face is just Botoxed to hell, so it looks like rubbery and plasticky and all this stuff, right? God, it's gross. It's freaky, man. But yeah, let's get back to the point.
I have no idea whether there'll be a Republican Party. On December 8th,
He has no idea if there's going to be a Republican Party.
I hope to get 100 million shots in people's arms in my first 100 days. We met that goal last week.
Here he goes on about the vaccines.
42 days ahead of schedule. Now today I'm setting a second goal, and that is we will, by my 100th day in office, have administered 200 million shots in people's arms.
So he met his first week T goal, so he's going to set another week T goal. Congratulations, Joe Biden.
Tactical reasons, it's hard to get those troops out. So what we've been doing, what I've been doing, and what Secretary Blinken has been doing, we've been meeting with our allies, those other nations that have NATO allies who have troops in Afghanistan as well. And if we leave, we're going to do so in a safe and orderly way. UN Resolution 1718.
I just want to point out one thing real quick, and I hate talking about Trump now that he's pretty much irrelevant at this point, but I mean, I don't ever like talking about, ex-presidents, but, Donald Trump was the first president in my lifetime to not get us into a war. Like, Obama did it, Bush did it before that, Clinton was involved, in the first Iraq war, the Kuwait invasion, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. Sorry, I'm slurring all my words, get all mixed up. But yeah, so that is one thing that Donald Trump did really well. He really brought peace in the Middle East, and I know that's like an overused, like a coined term, right? But I mean, he did the peace deal. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which every president has always run on that. They've always said, oh, we'll move the embassy to Jerusalem if I win office. And none of them ever do it because once they get into office, they say, oh, no, we can't actually do that because that'll piss off the Palestinians and the Muslims so much that it'll start like World War III. The Middle East will never be stable again, which, I mean, there's a pretty good argument to be made that the Middle East will never be stable ever in the first place. But, I mean, yeah, Donald Trump was the first president to make any progress there, and he made serious progress. He should win the Nobel Peace Prize if it's up to me for making peace between all these primarily Islamic countries and Israel. But I mean, of course, no one's ever going to give him a Nobel Peace Prize because if you give Donald Trump any sort of peace prize or recognition, you're obviously some sort of white supremacist or something like that, right? But yeah, let's go on. So obviously, Biden's over here like talking about pulling out of Afghanistan. Like, what are you talking about? It's not hard to pull out of these countries peacefully and safely. Like, Donald Trump literally had excellent foreign policy the entire time, especially when it comes to the Middle East. But let's go on.
Was violated by those particular missiles that were tested. Number one.
Roll back a little bit.
We're consulting with our violated by those particular missiles and orderly way.
Okay, here we go.
UN Resolution 1718 was violated by those particular missiles that were tested. Number one. We're consulting with.
This is when he was asked about Kim Jong-un firing test rockets over Japan into the ocean, essentially. They do it every couple of years to try to egg everyone on.
With our allies and partners, and there will be responses if they choose to escalate. We will respond accordingly. But I'm also prepared for some form of diplomacy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Like, let's be real, Joe Biden. There's not going to be any sort of military response. You might have like some drills or something, but there's not going to be an actual military response because you're against that, and everyone would say, "Oh, warmonger," blah blah blah. But yeah, there's going to be a diplomacy response, a diplomatic response.
But it has to be conditioned upon the end result of denuclearization. It's happened.
Yeah, like Iran, right? Like the Iran deal that we just got back into. Even though at the same time we are shooting missiles at their troops, at their funded militias that are in Syria. I bet most of you didn't even hear about that because it didn't make the news at all. It was like Biden's first month in office. He shoots a bunch of freaking cruise missiles at some Iranian-backed militias in Syria, and at the same time, he's sitting down and saying, hey, we should get back in the Iran deal. They've been doing really good. They're not into terrorism at all anymore. They're a really good country, and they want to join the global economic trade that's going on, and they want to dance, and they want to, kind of westernize a little bit, and maybe behind their own way. So, yeah, we're going to make the Iran deal. Yeah, it's real cool. And then he's like, behind the scenes, he's shooting missiles at Iranian-backed militia. It's so hypocritical. It's absolutely absurd. The media doesn't run these stories because they know it will make him look foolish.
Happens every single solitary year. There is a significant increase in the number of people coming to the border in the winter months of January, February, March. It happens every year. In addition to that, there is and by the way, does anybody suggest that there was a 31% increase under Trump because he was a nice guy and he was doing good things at the border? That's not the reason
good things at the
coming.
border, dude. What have you done at the border? You've done nothing. He literally said he wasn't going to go down there or something when he was asked. I think it might be at the end of this video, I think, but I saw one video where he was asked if he was going to go down to the border, and he said something like, no, I have tapped Kamala Harris, actually, to solve the border crisis. And Kamala Harris was on video earlier this week being asked about the border, and the first thing she does after the question is start going, the border? I'm not going down there. She does her freaking LOL crazy psycho laugh is what she does. Her witch laugh. Her I'm the Joker, I'm the villain laugh.
It's the time they can...
So the person that he wants to solve the border crisis is the person who laughs about it. That's what you want. They're going to take it seriously. Yeah, of
travel
course.
with the least likelihood of dying on the way because of the heat in the desert, number one. Number two, they're coming because
apparently problems
of the circumstances
looking alive
in country.
In the heat in the White House.
In country.
Never mind the heat in the desert, dude. But yeah, that's it for that video. That was a few little questions, a few little absurd answers. We already talked about a lot of the answers when I was reading over the other article. So we're going to get on to this new Georgia law that was passed, and Brian Kemp signed into office. This is an article from CNN, so it's going to be pretty... We're not going to read the whole thing. We're going to read the intro to it, and then we're going to jump to the bottom where they actually point out the facts, because that's how leftist media organizations work. They say all these crazy things about white supremacists and racists, and Republicans are bad and evil, and they're trying to pass voter suppression. They'll say all that in the first paragraph in the headline because that's all that people read these days. And then at the very bottom, way down here, I have it highlighted here so I can easily point it out. And then way at the bottom, they say what the law is actually about. So let's read a little bit of this and just talk about it real briefly, and then I'll let you guys go. So yeah, the topic is voting rights under attack. Georgia Republicans speed sweeping elections bill restricting voting access into law. CNN, Republicans in Georgia sped a sweeping elections bill into law Thursday, making it the first presidential battleground to impose new voting restrictions following President Joe Biden's victory in the state. The bill passed both chambers of the legislature in the span of a few hours before Republican Governor Brian Kemp signed it Thursday evening. By changing its election laws, quote, Georgia will take another step toward ensuring our elections are secure, accessible, and fair, he said. Kemp, who is up for re-election next year, had refused to give in to the former President Donald Trump's demands last year that he overturn Biden's victory. That is a lie. The Washington Post read that story. They ran that story months, like a month before Donald Trump was being elected, or like a month after. It was during the impeachment stuff. They ran the story that they said they had some sort of phone call between Brian Kemp and Donald Trump where Donald Trump said, make me win, pretty much. He said, find the fraud, find the votes, is what he said. That's what the Washington Post said he said. Literally, like a few weeks ago, the Washington Post came out and said, oh, no, take that back. We lied. He actually did not urge Brian Kemp to change the votes or any of that. It's crazy. And of course, it didn't make the media at all. It didn't make the media at all because it does not fit the narrative that Republicans are racist, white supremacists who want to suppress the minority vote. Let's go on. But on Thursday, Kemp said, quote, alarming issues with the 2020 election demonstrated the need for change. He predicted critics of the new law will, quote, threaten, boycott, sue, demonize, and team up with their friends and the national media to call me everything in the book. Yes, absolutely correct. It's already happening. The new law imposes new voter identification requirements for absentee ballots, empowers state officials to take over elections boards, limits the use of ballot drop boxes, and makes it a crime to approach voters in line to give them food and water. It's like, quote, like a Christmas tree goodies for voter suppression, Democratic State Senator Jen Jordan said on the Senate floor as lawmakers prepared to vote in the nearly 100-page bill Thursday. Republicans cast the measure, dubbed the Election Integrity Act of 2021 as necessary to boost confidence in elections after the 2020 election saw Trump make repeated, unsubstantiated claims of fraud. All right, let's go down to the bottom and see what this is actually about, because they're just talking about bullcrap and trying to make people on the right look bad. So here, the very last paragraph, they have it here. We'll read the one right before that, too. In that election, voter fraud confront broad changes. Voters will have to request absentee ballots. Okay, we'll read the last one. The last paragraph of this entire article, where they just bash on Trump and spread the lies about how he tried to influence Brian Kemp into, quote, finding votes, which is completely untrue. And the Washington Post even admitted it, like I said. The very last paragraph here, they say what's actually in the bill. And voters who seek absentee ballots will have to provide a copy of their identification or the number of their Georgia driver's license or state ID to both apply for and return an absentee ballot. So that's good. What that means is you have to prove that you're a citizen of Georgia to vote by absentee mail ballot in Georgia. Great. Only citizens of Georgia should be voting in Georgia. So yeah, this is absolutely necessary. I mean, of course, people. How is this not already a law? And then the next sentence they have this also, the bill also prohibits the Secretary of State's office from sending unsolicited absentee ballot applications, as it did before the 2020 primaries due to the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, so essentially it says you also can't just randomly send out, voter applications to people's houses when they're not asking for them. Absentee ballot applications, I mean, so because that happened in a lot of these states too. These Democratic secretaries of state would instruct their people, their workers, their coworkers, or whatever, their staff to send out absentee ballots to all like the blue districts. Because, if you send out a bunch of absentee ballot applications to all the blue districts, they're much more likely to fill it out, because then they don't have to go online. They don't have to request it. People are lazy. They don't have to do anything then. It just comes to their door and they're like, okay, yeah, fill it out right here. Fill it out, put it back in their mailbox, flip the little tag up. I don't even know if anyone uses their mailbox for return mail anymore, but, it's easy as that. Or they drop it off somewhere and they have their application and then they're good to go. So you're not allowed to do that anymore, which is good, because on the surface, it sounds like whatever, right? Send them out to everyone. But no, it's bad because people get them when they shouldn't get them. They get sent to people's houses after people have moved, and then someone can use it fraudulently. It's just bad news. You should only get them if you have a legitimate reason to be absentee ballot voting. You should be voting in person for the most part. And if you are absentee ballot voting, you should have a reason, and you should obviously have to prove your identity. This is so obvious. So obvious. But that's all I got for you guys tonight. I know it wasn't a super intellectual conversation. I don't have too much to say about, it's hard to make an intellectual conversation about Joe Biden's speaking. It's not very intellectual in and of itself. There's not much content actually there. It was all kind of things that were expected. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully I'll have something up over the weekend in the next couple days. But yeah, if not, like, subscribe, you take a scroll back through some of my old videos. I have a lot of topics in there that are still extremely relevant, and you might find some of it very interesting. And I'm also trying to put out a lot more financial videos soon. So if you're into finances, especially conservative fiscal policy and things like that, and the Constitution and, pure economics, gold, silver, none of that Bitcoin crap, none of that fake stuff, NFTs, none of that. But if you're into that, yeah, just, like and subscribe if you're into that stuff. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, whatever. If you, share it with Democrats, share it with people on the left. Maybe we'll convince a few of them to move to our side. But yeah, that's what I got for you guys. Like and subscribe. And thank you very much. Yeah, bye.